Okay, so to kind of narrow the focus of this video down into something actually understandable and palatable, I need to preface some background lore for the game. It's not entirely necessary, but there are some parts of the game that make more sense with a little background knowledge. I'm not going to deep dive into too much of the lore, as that in itself could be its own long video, and something tells me that this video is going to be long enough with how much ground we have to cover. This video will also be incredibly spoiler heavy. In fact, that's the whole point of making this, so if you have a problem with that, I'd recommend bailing now. With all that in mind, let me just tell you a bit about the world our Little Witch finds ourselves in. So, even here, things are enigmatic. From what I can tell from the item descriptions, we never really find out where the Misty Forest or the castle actually is. All we know is that it's a place that is well guarded by powerful magics to protect the remaining bestial folk and demi-humans from the human skulls of mass genocide, which is fueled by the zealotry of the church. We don't really know the name of the continent or world we find ourselves in, but item descriptions depict this as a land that's sprawling with cities and townships that are mostly dominated by humans. Humans seem to have risen to their prominent position after championing through the mysterious Age of Apocalypse, and built a culture that venerates heroes and their faith to the church, and this intense faith in the church leads to terrible abuses of their power, as well as an understanding of the soul in every living creature through the church's experiments. These souls can basically be harvested and refined from any living creature with the right magic and then placed into vessels. If someone is strong of will, they may absorb the soul in the form of implanted crystals to enhance their own magical abilities. If the culmination of souls is put into a vessel without life, we instead end up with what is known as a crafted soul. Crafted souls maintain the personality of the dominant souls that make up their general composition, and can, but not always, maintain the memories of those who came before them. Their consciousness and how much influence they have over their mind and body is determined by how much soul essence they have access to, and the stronger crafted souls are about as sentient as any other living being. Although unnatural formations of essence rarely last forever, this practice of making these crafted souls is largely regulated by the church, and those tampering with the soul for other reasons are seen as heretics by larger society. Honestly, there's way more to get into here, and I'm simplifying a lot, but I really just wanted to set the stage before we dive into the game proper, so thank you all for bearing with me and that little info dump about crafted souls, the church, and all that. The first cutscene has us walking towards a mysterious castle in a misty forest. Our main protagonist, simply labeled as Nobeta, seems to not know who she is, where she is, or why she's even there. Just that she needs to keep pressing forward. We stumble our way through some wandering souls that seem to be stuck lingering around the castle grounds until we see some kind of crystal keeping the castle sealed. It seems like whatever lived in this castle wants to keep intruders out. Immediately after breaking the seal and stepping in further, we find some kind of shrine to a goddess who Nobeta instinctively prays to replenish her power. Stepping further into the castle, we find another seal keeping us out, but with Nobeta's arcane magic, we manage to brute force our way further into the castle chambers. It's here that we find some kind of black cat being harassed by lingering souls, and seeing the cat in danger, Nobeta dives right into action, trying to save the poor kitty. The adorable feline takes a liking to us the moment we save her, and Nobeta takes the newly found companion along for the ride as we move forward. Further inside the castle, we find another one of these goddess shrines, so this one is much bigger than the rest. It seems that this used to be a main hub for the castle, although its main residence now seems to be nothing more than a few lingering souls that just refuse to perish. Most of the gates are locked though, so we only really have one way to go from here. Proceeding through the gate leads us to a set of armor laying on the floor. The room seals off and the armor comes to life, so it's time for our shy little magi to defend herself. The armor sends the little witch to the back of the room, but she picks herself up and defeats the armor with a little effort. It's in this scene that we learn that Nobeta is looking for the throne room for some reason, but we don't yet know why. And the armor on the floor begins to stand itself back up and glow. It makes a Lord of the Rings quote at us while charging up a huge amount of mana, threatening to blow up everything in the room. However, just in the nick of the time, the cat we saved from earlier pops out from the bag to ward us from the explosion. The little Neko saves us, but not before we fall through the floor to the depths beneath the castle. Sometime during the fall, we experience like a flashback or a memory. Whatever it is, the cat is speaking to us, telling us that we have finally returned. The flashback doesn't last long before we find ourselves on the floor of the depths here beneath the castle. The cat we found along the way is batting at our head trying to wake us from our dream, and Nobeta eventually awakes, a little confused that everything just happened. The kitty seems to know a lot more about Nobeta's goal than she does, insisting that we have to take a different route to the throne room and offering to guide us there. Nobeta seems more interested in the fact that she's talking to an actual cat and not just some demi-human right now, and can't really seem to process that. Finally, we get to exploring the underground caverns, and it's a really simple but fun level. It's got some interesting parkour, and the bioluminescent mushrooms are super pretty. I'm a sucker for this kind of area design. That's probably because of that one cool dungeon from Skyrim. You know, Blackreach? It's here that we learn the absorb spell too, so that we can try parrying enemy attacks. Though it never really tells you when the parry window is exactly, so I spent way too long getting beaten up by these dolls until I eventually found it. And then I forgot about the parry until near the end of the game entirely. But we also gain the ability to double jump here too, which lets us out of the starting area. The first part breezes by fairly quickly, lighting a few lanterns and trying out our new ice spell to unlock the next gate. The kitty Nobeta found is waiting for us there, giving us another level of absorption when passing the puzzle. Heading further in, we see the cat familiar standing by the fire. Nobeta is unsure how she wants to proceed, scared of the fire blocking the path. Our unknown companion scolds us for not using our brain and charging our ability. Channeling the ice element shows to Nobeta that she can in fact walk through the fire, further establishing her control over the elements. Nobeta uses the newfound power of her channeling to solve another puzzle further into the room, and pushes onwards into a room filled with empty dolls scattered about the floor. Nobeta wonders out loud if the crafted souls they'd been seeing along the journey were able to feel anything, to which the cat says that they're not conscious, but poses to Nobeta that they may not be very different from the dolls you see here on the floor. Nobeta seems taken aback by the sentiment, claiming the only reason she's mindlessly following the kitty is because the kitty knows the way to the throne room. The Neko doesn't give much more information to our little magi, leaving her to ponder the question in her own time. That way they can move forward closer to the throne room. However, it's not long before they stumble upon a small girl in blue standing in a room filled with empty puppets. Nobeta asks if she's a crafted soul, which the girl confirms, implying that all the empty bodies around her once belonged to her. Even the familiar seems surprised that the crafted soul has developed a consciousness and was able to wreak so much havoc. The doll muses that she has run out of vessels to host her soul, sealing Nobeta in the room with her to hopefully take a new vessel for herself. The fight ends up being tougher than the first boss, but Nobeta isn't willing to give up her vessel and defeats the crafted soul trying to steal her body. Lying on the floor, the soul understands that this fate was inevitable. Even if it did take Nobeta's body, it would end eventually. She voices the wish that's deepest in her heart. She wishes to see her ribbon dance in the wind of a grassy plain. In her last moments, she requests that Nobeta take that ribbon to somewhere the wind and grass dance in the breeze, to which Nobeta accepts the request at the dismay of the familiar. After taking on the request given to Nobeta by the enigmatic crafted soul, she ends up heading further into the depths underneath the castle. It takes the little magi to this magma-filled ruin, a part of the castle that was built too deep underground, and a fissure of magma seems to have taken over most of the ruins here. Even before we as the players see the lava, we can hear its gentle thrum in the background of the ruin as we approach. Stepping into the ruin, Nobeta seems troubled by the warmth of the soul she just absorbed. It seems different to the lesser souls she'd been drawing power from up until this point. The familiar chastises Nobeta for her efforts in helping the crafted soul from earlier, but before she can respond, Nobeta's attention is caught by a stuffed bear that quickly escapes from view. The cat seems genuinely intent on going down the path fastest towards the throne room, but Nobeta's curiosity gets the better of her as she goes to investigate the strange bear. This takes us towards another statue room devoted to the same goddess as earlier, and further into some more platforming while fighting some surprisingly difficult ranged enemies. Not much happens here story-wise, but the level itself is really fun and engaging, with puzzles looping back around on themselves. I did get lost here a few times on my first playthrough, but honestly, I didn't mind at all. Eventually, when clearing the first part of the ruins, we end up opening some kind of stairway guarded by another magical seal within the castle. It seems that the platforms themselves are capable of withstanding the lava, which is used to further obfuscate the way forward. Heading into the new area, we find a couple secrets and drop down an elevator shaft to find a mini-boss. It's a girl with scissors that tries to chop you up, and she's rather difficult, especially in such a close environment. But our little Nobeta makes short work of her and allows us to shortcut back so we can continue on the next part of the level. Our companion calls out to little Nobeta though, asking why she just ran off the way she did. Nobeta doesn't seem entirely sure at first, but insists that it's because she's been so focused on the throne and hasn't been acting on her own accord. In a sense, she feels like a puppet and wanted to investigate further into what she saw. This is also the first time Nobeta really experiences free will, as far as her memory is concerned. Knowing that this is her choice, she's reluctant to give up her agency and just be a tool for the throne, since she hardly knows why she's even chasing it. So with her heart set, she moves on despite the familiar's disapproval. We make our way through a more difficult section of platforming that includes this cool moving elevator powered by a magic crystal. There's a lot of secret content to explore if you're inclined, and I believe I got most of it on my first run, but definitely missed some things I had to clean up on New Game Plus. Overall, it's a challenging but super fun lava level, which I usually hate in platform style games. The said elevator leads us to another shrine where we collect ourselves before heading further on into the ruin. Nobeta fights her way through another one of those scissor girls before finding a crafted soul seemingly playing on their own in the ruins. When the Magi approaches the crafted soul, she asks if Nobeta will play with her, but the familiar advises against interacting with the soul since it never bodes well. While talking to the crafted soul, we learn that she's been playing a game with her friends, and they've taken turns absorbing each other's souls as they've defeated one another in order to stay alive. After revealing this, she begins to channel those absorbed souls into her teddy bear, which we saw earlier, souping it up until it turns into a giant familiar to fight with. With the pieces in place, it looks like Nobeta has to stand up for a soul yet again. After defeating the teddy bear familiar, the crafted soul begins to channel her energy into her own form, swelling up until she's too big for the platform beneath her to even hold her up anymore. She falls into the lava but manages to stand up and begins a second phase of the fight. If you die here, I learned that you could just go right from the shrine back to the second phase right away, which is really nice. And although it's mostly a set piece, it's still a fun fight. Eventually though, Nobeta fells Monica, unwilling to concede her body despite the wishes of the poor child. When seeing the crafted soul lying on the ground, Nobeta asks why she'd eat the souls of all her friends, wondering out loud why she wouldn't just keep playing with them normally. That's when Monica reveals that in order to preserve her consciousness, she needs to absorb their essence to keep on living, to hopefully see her and her friends' dreams realized. She just wanted to feel the world as herself while doing it, but it's clearly that's not going to be possible anymore. Regretful that she couldn't make her friends' dreams and wishes come true, she asks Nobeta if she'd uphold those dreams and take her friends' souls to see a place filled with sunshine. A little Magi can't save the dying soul, so she agrees to help her and her friends with this one final wish so that they can hopefully rest. And with these matters settled, Nobeta begins to follow their companion back towards the throne room. The journey takes us to a new place known as the Dark Tunnel. Before we actually make it into the tunnel though, a little Magi loses her hat in the soaring winds. Not wanting to leave it behind, she asks the familiar if she can get her hat back, and the familiar snaps at her for always getting sidetracked and not wanting to stay away from the throne any longer. Nobeta manages to gain some confidence and stand up for herself. Familiar agrees to, at the very least, wait up for the poor little girl and let her get her lost hat back. And so begins a short adventure of retrieving Nobeta's hat. This section starts off pretty simple. Nobeta finds a small glowing orb she can draw power from and uses it to light up other orbs to solve puzzles and illuminate dark areas. This area is called the Dark Tunnel after all. The journey here is mostly short. There's a few enemy types, including a doll with a shield that blocks non-magical attacks. There's plenty of loot hidden around the place, and I found some chests here to be the hardest to find in the entire game. The area is not only dark though, and is filled with plenty of traps. We even see the only instance of a pressure plate trap that exists in the game within this little section. But even with all that said, a little witch manages to push on past everything in her way and find her precious hat. Jumping down from the platform, we find our furry companion waiting for us. The little kitty doesn't quite understand Nobeta's love for the hat, but despite not quite understanding, she's still happy to guide Nobeta onwards towards the throne and deeper into the tunnel. This tunnel is seriously dark, using a mechanic that we learned about earlier when we picked up the light orb. There is a way to brighten up most of these areas right at the beginning, but I dived right into the abyss and didn't find the point to light it all up until I just about finished clearing it. Still, there isn't much to report in the first couple chambers, just some enemies and one new enemy type that can put shields up. This enemy will come back to bite us in the butt pretty soon later, however. And by soon I mean almost immediately. After cleaning up a couple more orbs, we enter a new room with a crystal puzzle and a shield doll hiding behind a magical barrier, making one of the scissor dolls practically immortal. The trick here is to use thunder magic, but it's easy to miss that path since it's shrouded in darkness when you first come across it. I had to backtrack in order to get this done right the first time, and I was worried that I had softlocked myself, but thankfully, this game doesn't really allow for softlocks like that. Once we pick up the lightning spell and defeat those two enemies, we're met with an even tougher section involving multiple new sniper enemies that charge up shots from long range and do massive damage. They're not too challenging to dodge on their own, but combined up with those close-range enemies, they can become very overwhelming very quickly. Still, we take them down and break the next crystal puzzle, letting us proceed onward to the platform across the gap. There's a few enemies here to clear in another chest, but it's basically the same combat strategy from before. And you know how I said there's only one instance of a pressure plate trap in this game? Well, I lied, there's actually two, and the second one is right here as we head on to the next zone. As the duo are crossing the bridge out of the tunnel, the bridge begins to collapse. It seems that the kitty is caught in the rubble taking her down, but she saves herself, ending up stranded on a pillar amidst the abyss. The familiar tells Nobeta that it's okay to leave her behind, saying that the little witch will be fine on her own since she's nearing the throne room and has been for a while now. Nobeta seems reluctant to leave her little friend behind, however, wanting to make the whole journey with her new companion. It's up in the air as to whether or not this is her needing connection, or if it's still her fear of not being able to rise up to the task. Regardless, Nobeta refuses to leave her companion behind and rushes to the aid of the familiar, who honestly just seems so tired of Nobeta's antics. It's only now that she reveals that Nobeta herself is in fact a conscious crafted soul. As Nobeta saves the familiar, however, she's hit with a piece of rubble, knocking her out cold. And just as she's about to fall to her death, the familiar transforms into a human, witch-like body in order to catch the falling Nobeta. Nobeta sees its form only for a moment before she slowly loses consciousness again, eventually waking up in a safer part of the ruins with her companion still by her side. In cat form again though now. Seemingly having already forgotten about the kitty that even shifted, she picks her up with glee, holding her up in the air in celebration, while the familiar glares daggers down at Nobeta, practically screaming, "Put me down already!" Eventually Nobeta does, and the cat opens up a little bit to her the moment she does. It's a rare treat, but likely only happened because she nearly watched Nobeta fall to her death. Still, not wanting to dwell on the mushy stuff for long, they hurry along towards the throne room once more. We find ourselves in front of another goddess shrine and a large gate. Heading on inwards, it seems like this part of the castle is in much better repair than the rest of the ruins and caves we've been wading through thus far. Judging by the decay on the outer walls of the castle, it seems like those parts were shut off long before the main chambers fell into ruin. It leads me to wonder if there was a longer siege put in place against the castle's residents before the throne eventually fell. We wade our way through a couple more rooms filled with enemies and find ourselves quickly at another goddess statue again. Here, there's two routes we can take. We can either head further into the throne room, or we can take a secret passage to the side and end up seeing a whole host of optional enemies. Naturally, being a curious little critter, my instincts guide us along the side route to see what lies beyond this passage. Honestly, there's not much to say about the first run up to the next goddess statue. It's mostly just enemy spam and a lot of it. There's a lot of hidden chests to find, which is fun, but honestly a lot of this is my least favorite area in the game. Like, I'm glad it's here, but honestly I like the platforming of a lot of the other levels from earlier on, and the flavor of those zones a lot more too. Still, it's not bad, just outshined by the rest of the game so far. But still, we push on and find our way back to the shrine we started at. After a long journey, it looks like we're really close to the throne room at the start. And not only that, further into the secret passage, we end up finding a secret boss too. He's a souped up version of the first boss, and red too, just to make sure you didn't mistake him. But he's not much more challenging. He only does a bit more damage and goes down fairly easily. Honestly, the run leading to this boss room is harder than the fight itself. After he explodes into pieces, we pick up the ability to teleport. This is fantastic for backtracking and exploring any secrets or looking for items that you may have missed. That plus seeing how interconnected the areas are helps make the world feel very alive and doesn't make the fast travel feel like it takes you out of the world at all. Sure, the levels are sectioned off into zones, but they all link up in a way that feels believable and immersive. I honestly really loved coming back and seeing that first shrine. And I did spend quite a bit of time backtracking. I didn't find everything, I left that for my NG Plus run, but I did end up getting enough spells and stuff to make the ending fights a little easier. Speaking of New Game Plus, I need to talk about a fight I missed on this run and recorded on my NG Plus playthrough. I don't mean to break immersion, but there's this really cool fight beneath the throne room with an Apocalypse Knight. There's a few items and stuff here for lore too, as well as the fight itself just being really cool. Anyways, back to the main event. So with our adventure seemingly close to its end, it's time for us to approach the throne room. A sign warns us that this is the point of no return, and if we have any unfinished business, we should attend to it now. Determined to reclaim the throne as her own, Nobeta heads onward. As we approach the throne, the duo is stopped by a crafted soul named Vanessa. She doesn't let the two approach, frustrated by the fact that no matter how hard she tries, she can't take the power of the throne for herself. Knowing Nobeta intends to take the throne back that belongs to her, Vanessa lashes out and summons what I can only describe as a keyblade in an attempt to claim Nobeta's vessel and hopefully absorb the throne's power. Nobeta fends off the mysterious attacker, leaving them pondering their futile existence on the floor. Nobeta mostly ignores Vanessa and heads up for the throne, finally ready to fulfill her purpose. Vanessa, unable to let this stand, picks up what little strength she has left and forces Nobeta to the seat of the throne by her neck. In a truly jaw-dropping turn of events, she kisses the Little Witch to merge their souls together, I guess? It's initially very unclear, but we soon get a cryptic sequence in which the guiding familiar begins to speak directly to Nobeta, addressing her as if she's a friend who's been gone for a very long time. The familiar begins to talk about our Nobeta as if they were just a crafted soul in Nobeta's image, but in a sense of fondness as they've seen this crafted soul grow over the course of their adventure. It seems who we were wasn't really Nobeta, but that doesn't matter now. As a crafted soul, we finally reached our destination. The enigmatic cat says their farewells to their actual master, in an honestly really heartfelt moment, having not had the chance to really open up to the companion for what seems like an age. And with that, the furry companion is gone, and so is the crafted soul we had been playing from earlier, leaving us here as the real Witch Nobeta. Immediately, we see her expression change, becoming more confident, indicating that the Nobeta we knew along the way is gone. The familiar has guided the crafted soul back to its master to empower her to break away from the throne she's been sealed within, and take back this castle and this vessel as her own. And so we take back control of Nobeta and begin to explore the spirit realm she's been sealed away in all this time, and honestly, I really like this place. The color palette, the music and atmosphere, down to the platforming and combat all feel really satisfying here. There's plenty of these little crystal things to break that drop mana and health to keep the latter half of the game moving forward while picking up new items to get little nuggets of lore. Heading forward from our starting point, we find ourselves in an open courtyard brimming with high-level enemies, and while we're fighting them, it's immediately apparent just how much faster and more confident Nobeta is in her whole form. She dashes gracefully rather than the normal tuck and roll that we're used to seeing with the other crafted soul, and can glide through the air just as effortlessly. Once we clear out this group of enemies and grab some of the items on the floor, we head up on some platforms and into another section of the spirit realm. Here there are a couple more secret chests with some funky platforming and some really tough foes. These archers and knights don't mess around, that's for sure. Slowly but surely we take them out, grab our chests and move on upwards. We pass by another statue and even more ruins, each stage getting progressively more challenging than the last. But even still, we keep on rolling until we hit a small arena, the large white ghost-like girl emerging from a pool of darkness. Her hands are large and distorted, ordained with shackles, her soul kept prisoner here to keep Nobeta's soul sealed away from its vessel. We defeat it with a bit of effort, or so we think. We end up going to a racetrack-style arena where the seal chases us down, spitting fire at us. Even though the creature is adamant to see us perish, it's no match for Nobeta in our current state, merely a bump in the road. The next zone is just a couple more crystal and parkour puzzles padded with more high-level enemies. Not too much to write home about, but still fun as usual. After parsing through the next area, we open up a teleport, which brings us to the last major section of the spirit world. This next section is mercifully short, with no real puzzles or anything to solve, but there is an easily missable chest off to the side. It's a pretty straight run to the apex where Nobeta finds Vanessa. Having attempted to merge with the crafted soul that returned Nobeta's power in this realm, Vanessa has also found herself in this bridge between worlds, still intent on stealing that power and Nobeta's vessel for herself. When confronted, Vanessa ponders whether or not she still exists. Having been a shell of a soul at this point, she seems uncertain. Whereas Nobeta seems assured that they both do, the answer does not satisfy Vanessa, who wishes to be whole again, if that's even a thing that's possible. Still, it doesn't stop her from trying to take over the Little Witch's body once again. Eventually though, Vanessa falls to Nobeta's will. Nobeta doesn't seem angry at all. The church basically sent Vanessa to destroy the castle and seal her away in the first place, but even still, Vanessa was a victim in all this. Taking her essence, we dive deeper into the world. Heading on deeper into the spirit realm, we find ourselves within the abyss, and overall, it's a pretty short area. Most of the enemies in these areas that are of any note are the scissor girls from earlier, that and a giant version of the broom doll who constantly summons barriers while surrounded by her two goons. It's pretty much just a straight run for a while though, so skip over some of this, especially because the draw of this area really begins when we get to a platform that extends out 3 ways. Each way has its own small puzzle or level of sorts. I'll be going through them from left to right as there's no particular order these need to be done in. The first puzzle involves Nobeta crashing through a fake wall and running past falling boulders in a representation of the underground ruins from the castle. At the bottom is where you find a crystal. Breaking that crystal makes all the doll statues around us come to life. I'm not entirely sure I fought them the right way, but the only way I could find that I could do damage to them was by channeling fire and melee, spamming them to death. It takes a while to put all of them down, but eventually we do unlock the way out, leading us all the way to a portal that takes us to the top left platform, where we break our first major crystal for this zone. Next up is the platform in the middle. We start by descending a staircase fighting off 2 of the ranged machine gunning enemies we met in the lava ruins, followed by a staircase that seems to have a falling boulder down endlessly. The boulder isn't really much of a threat, but the enemies hit pretty hard here, so we have to still be mindful. Passing the boulder leads us to a large arena with small dolls, also from the lava ruins, at the very end. Beginning this fight though, it becomes clear that she's much stronger and smarter than her counterparts. It takes quite a bit of effort to put her down, but Nobeta comes out superior once again and pushes on. We move through and find our second crystal atop the second platform, bringing us right back to the hub platform in the center. Last is the platform on the right. We enter in and now we're in the lava ruins for real. There is a lot of, well, lava exploding up from the ground. The previous platform resembled the Dawntrail Castle throne room with lava ruins enemies, whereas this place is purely the lava ruins from beneath the castle. The first thing we have to do is pull the lever that drains some of the lava from the floor, revealing a second layer for us to platform on, as well as another chest. Moving forward brings us to a room with a few enemies along the large crystal. We're going to need that because the floor down below us is completely on fire. There's a couple ways to deal with this. I believe you're meant to use ice powers to melee the enemies down there, but I found it to be super sketchy and unreliable, so it's best to stand on this elevated platform near the crystal and spam AoEs if you can. In this footage, I took a bit of a halfway kind of strategy where I was using ice magic after aggroing the enemies, but a replay showed me you can just spam thunder with basically no consequence and skip this janky section. After finishing up here, we head on out and strike the crystal at the top of the last platform, which opens up a giant teleport circle in the middle of our hub, only a bit longer until Nobeta has finally reclaimed her true form. The teleporter warps us back to the core of the spirit realm, where the crafted soul we played as has had their remaining essence scattered towards. The seal is almost broken, so all Nobeta needs to do now is rush down and find this crafted soul, who journeyed all the way here, and take her vessel back as her own. The throne in the middle is where she needs to sit to reclaim herself, her power, and eventually her castle. Nobeta makes no hesitation as she rushes down to finally break the seal and set herself free. Approaching the throne, there's a girl sitting there. The timid nature is instantly recognizable. This is our soul, after all. She doesn't seem to understand that she isn't really Nobeta yet, being a new soul. Nobeta tells her that she was nothing more than a fabrication to replace her while she was gone and keep her sealed away, which isn't exactly the easiest news to digest. After the long journey that brought crafted soul here, she finally began to realize what it meant to be herself. She'd finally developed her own beliefs and feelings, so being told that she was meant for just one purpose and that it was about to end, our Nonota wasn't just gonna sit there and let Nobeta take her body back. Not that she wanted to be an antagonist, it's just that she had no other real options left. She really didn't want to die here. Nonota lashes out, conjuring a storm around the island, isolating them to battle face to face over who gets to take this vessel. The fight is honestly gorgeous, taking inspiration from all the abilities we've used so far. It's challenging, but it's not too overwhelming. As a fight, and a really pretty spectacle too. Clashing together, eventually we weaken Nonota, but she doesn't let it end here just yet. The crafted souls that she met along the way begin to glow, beckoning her to draw on their power. This is where the fight really begins, and not only do we have to contend with Nonota, but we also have to fight against the echoes of the souls she promised to bring to better places. This fight can get complicated, but it never felt too overwhelming to me. Eventually though, Nobeta does defeat the crafted soul. She approaches Nonota calmly while she lays meekly in the puddle brought about by the storm she had just conjured. They have a moment where they share their hearts. Nobeta saw on display just how much Nonota went through and takes pity on her, partially due to the likeness of her own self. In this moment, she offers something that only the familiar thought was possible, a chance to accompany Nobeta in the wake of the late Kitty's death. Nonota seems content with this answer, simply happy to be able to see the world just a bit longer as herself. The throne appears at Nobeta's will as she approaches, taking a seat on the mantle she longed for all this time. With tremendous power, she finally breaks free of the seal imposed on her by the church, taking her vessel back as her own and giving Nonota's soul to the familiar's old vessel. While she cannot reunite entirely with her old friend, that familiar's form will stay by her master's side forever, now with Nonota residing within. The two leave the castle walls, walking off together into the sunset, on their take on the world now that Nobeta is no longer trapped within them. And so that was Little Witch Nobeta. This has been my most ambitious project yet. Heck, by the time I'm at the end of this script, I'm unsure if this is even gonna come out. This game just captured a place in my heart, and I really wanted to share my journey with it with everybody. Originally, this was meant to be a Let's Play, but my mic really couldn't handle recording and playing live, even with OBS filters, so I had to wait for a new mic to eventually come in for that kind of stuff. And while waiting, I figured I'd make a longer commentary style video that covers the whole game. Or at least, the story. There is still the Trial Tower, which was insanely hard but rewarding. It reveals a lot more about the story as a whole, along with many of the item descriptions. At some point, I'll probably make a whole video covering some of the extra lore that exists in this game because the main story here really only scratches the surface of what's on offer. Overall, I had a great time playing this and putting it together. I can't say I had as great of a time doing it. It was fun getting the footage and scripting, but recording the audio and getting it to work has just been a headache. I'll probably keep these shorter going forward, but even still, I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I did, putting it together, even if it had some rough moments. And as always, everybody, I will see you next time.